So who are you trying to pressure with this campaign right now?
Well, I think it's twofold. I mean, at the end of the day, this is about Donald Trump and Republicans, and we need to move, I think, support there. But I think we need to be realistic about what's possible on that front. And so I think the other piece of this is putting pressure on, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Democrats. I mean, when you talk to Democrats, especially in D.C., they have this mentality that, it's this really weird idea that like Republicans win in rural America, so we should try and look more like Republicans. And like that's opposite to what we see. And when we look at the polling, we see that there's actually broad support for, progressive policies going back to sort of the New Deal philosophy. And that's how you win rural voters. That's what Bernie Sanders has done. That's what Stacey Abrams has done. That's what Elizabeth Warren has done. That's what J.D. Scholten is doing in Iowa, Bashir in Kentucky, Sherrod Brown here in Ohio, John Tester. That's how you win, is by leaning in and fighting on these issues. We say we're boldly progressive and proudly rural, and we don't think there's a contradiction there. But when you look at DC Democrats, I mean, they kind of have this idea of, well, I don't know, we need to be careful. We can't have nice things because those rural people are going to hate it. And that's not the case. I mean, if you look at Medicaid and these fights over Medicaid expansion, the states that refuse to expand Medicaid are seeing their rural hospitals close. And so I think there's some just re-educating that needs to happen among DC Democrats, and showing up with a petition with 400,000 people on it, I think kind of reframes the paradigm.
And I think we've had this conversation on the show ad nauseum. So much of it has to do with how they define what conservative is. I mean, at the end of the day, Amy Klobuchar, leaning more conservative. She's not more populist. She's not more rural. She's just more in line with big banks and lobbyists and oil companies. I mean, that's not something that speaks to even a conservative member of a rural community. I think at the end of the day, that's why Medicare for All is so popular across party lines.
Without a doubt. I mean, specifically on that point, if you are a Democrat with Republican policies, you lose on both fronts, because rural people don't really like Democrats because culturally they've been told not to like Democrats, but they also don't really like Republican policies either. So I would point to Paul Wellstone from Minnesota as an example of what a Midwest Democrat looks like. I mean, that Paul Wellstone and his organizing has shaped a generation of progressives in the Midwest. And I think that's what we're trying to get back to, is that old school Midwest prairie populist progressive.
Are you noticing a generational shift?
Absolutely. No question. It's on the front and the back. There is this tried and true old school prairie progressive that we see that has been doing this for years. The last 30 years, to be honest, progressive have really divested or, kind of changed their focus a little bit. A lot of them are coming back now. And with that is this emergence of this new generation, especially among millennials and younger, of especially in the South and in Appalachia specifically. They're just, they're fighters and they're wanting to fight. And people like J.D. Scholten, I think, is a good example in Iowa, Stephen Smith in West Virginia. And they really represent that new generation. And the more that they get connected with the kind of old school progressives, I think the more that they are having an impact.
It's a nice coalition, yeah. So influencing Democrats, I mean, are there actually Democrats who are opposed to funding Postal Service, or are they just not being bold enough? It just seems so non-controversial. I can't believe we're even having this conversation, especially in light of the general election. Yeah,
I think that it's easy. It's easy to forget the perspective of a voter. Like a voter is going to check their mail every day. During quarantine, most voters are seeing their postal worker every day. That's how people view government. And sometimes I think people in government view it from government to the people. And it's that in a lot of ways that's backwards. So I think, people aren't going to trust you with your healthcare unless you fix their potholes. And if they think you're somebody that can fix their potholes, they're going to trust you more with their healthcare. And I think that's something that Democrats could think more about. So I don't think it's that they're afraid to be bold on the post office. I think that they're sometimes afraid to champion government. We have this idea that government is bad. And, I don't know where that idea comes from, especially in these small towns and rural communities. One, people are much closer to their government, so they know the people that are running it. So I think that there's more trust at the local level, but even at the federal level, without a strong federal government during the New Deal, we wouldn't have had rural electrification. And so I think sometimes Democrats have fallen for that sort of conservative frame that government is bad. And so in that sense, maybe they could be a little bit more bold. But sometimes I think they just forget to look at things like voters look at things.
Thank you for watching The Nomiki Show. You can support us on YouTube by clicking subscribe, like, and sharing to get those alerts. And patrons, well, they make this show run on time. So thanks to all of you who have joined our community already. If you like our content and want more, from special segments to interviews and merch, you can join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. I'm spending all of my iced coffee money on other people's shows because I think this is the time that we have to support our independent media.